And there we are. Welcome back. We just pressed play. We got Mr. John Gordon with us today for episode 41. The Bull is with us, Big Steve McGuigan, and we're going to come at you guys hot today for a quick shot about just talking about culture. So John Gordon is a speaker. He's a best-selling author. He's at many books. The boys here have read some of yours, John, that have been awesome and very impactful and influential to us in our lives. But I think in our world, the energy bus has been one that has completely blown through our worlds, and some of the things that Positive Dog was a big one as I was playing baseball. And you've written, obviously, many books. But as we dive into that, we'll take care of that piece on the back end. John, first of all, thanks for coming on here and being with us today, man.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, it's as we kind of talked about before we press play, we'll just kind of touch on culture and kind of some of the things that you've seen, some of the things you've seen as a leader, kind of some hot points on what you think need to be nailed, things that people need to try to be influenced by, and then even the leaders, what you're trying to influence, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it all starts with the leader. As the leader, you must drive the culture because it's your most important job. I worked with the Rams last year, the LA Rams. Sean McVay was a rookie coach. They went from 4-12 to 11-5 a number of years ago when Matt Ryan was a rookie and Mike Smith was a rookie coach. They went from 4-12 to 11-5 working with them. So I often joke in my talks, I say, am I the reason for their success? And everyone laughs. Everyone laughs. I say, of course not. I spoke to the Cleveland Browns 2 years ago, right? So it's not the talk. It's not the book. It's always the leader and the culture that you create. And culture is really dictated by your thoughts, your beliefs, your behaviors, your habits, what we do, what we say, what we think. And so every day you're creating culture.
And I love that, but let me ask you something, because just feeding off the Rams and the Browns, how do you know if you're not getting wins, if we're talking in the sports world, how do you know you're still creating a good culture?
Well, when I was with the Browns a couple years ago, this was before Hugh Jackson was the coach, I could tell right away they did not have a good culture. I could tell there was an alignment between the front office and the coaching staff. I could tell because when you've been a part of a great culture, you know what it looks like and feels like, and I could just tell it wasn't there. Guys wanted to win. They wanted to be part of something great, but leadership wasn't driving it, and there wasn't alignment between all the levels of the organization. You have to have the GM, the owner, and the coach have to all be on the same page. Now, it seems like they have that now with the Browns. They just didn't get a couple wins, right? Because you got a kicker that didn't make the kicks. You can't do anything about that. But you can tell that things are improving there. Now, how they handle adversity, how they overcome these challenges now, will really tell you what kind of culture they have. Because I work with the Dodgers this year and the last 3 years, and the Dodgers did not start out well. They were 10 games below 500. They have been fighting all year, just really scratching and clawing to the point where they're now, a game and a half to the Rockies, and just had a walk-off last night. Now, I don't know if they're going to win the division or not. I still hope they make the playoffs, but I know that this team is not giving up. I know their culture is strong, and it continues to drive everything they do, and it's why they're still in it. They really could have given up in the beginning of the season. They could have given up halfway through the season. But because you have great leadership, you have a great team that really buys into that culture and creates that culture, they create a culture of greatness, so they expect greatness. They keep on fighting towards it.
Now, well, let me ask you this too, because you think about, obviously, leadership. Would you say that leadership starts the culture, but then who sustains the culture?
Yeah, well, they often say, right, leadership creates the culture, but it comes to life, right? It's set from the top down, but it comes to life from the bottom up. And so, but everybody creates the culture. That's right. The thing. So everyone on a team creates the culture. It's not just the leadership. And when I speak to student athletes, I tell them this all the time. I'm like, you know what? Don't think it's just the coach or the captains or the leader. You're creating the culture every day by what you think, say, and do. So you can be a germ or a big dose of vitamin C. You are contagious. What kind of energy are you sharing and bringing to your team each day to create the culture? So stop deflecting it. Stop blaming others. Own it. It's your culture. Start creating it today.
And that's where you find out really how important each individual is within that culture. And we talk about that all the time because we're in youth sports. So in youth sports, especially with insecurity in younger athletes and younger kids, it's really difficult for them to understand how important one person can be. So can you kind of touch on how one person can affect 1,000 people?
Sure. Well, let's talk about youth sports for a second. I'm glad you said that, because some people might be listening to this, youth coaches, and then say, oh, well, we have to create a culture like the Rams or the Dodgers or the Falcons. We have to do that. And I just want youth sports coaches to know the best culture you can create is a fun culture for youth, right? Make it fun for them. Stop thinking that you're an NFL coach or a Major League Baseball coach or manager. You're not. Create a culture where these kids love to play, love to get better, and love to be with each other and just want to have fun. You could pursue excellence. You could say, hey, let's get better every day. Let's have fun doing it. Let's have a great time as a team. You can have it, but let's not treat these kids like major leaguers. Let's make sure that we're really, creating a culture that is all about love, fun, and then getting better in the process.
So what would you say in the terms of the major leagues? Now flip it on that and say, if you're in the big leagues, how much is love, care, and that stuff in the highest level? How much of that plays a role? Because now you are in a business world.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I think it's the same, right? I believe that high schools need to be run more like elementary schools, right? We get to high school and we have teachers and students that are all negative, whereas in elementary school they're all positive, they're having fun. And I always say that we should run high schools like elementary schools and bring that fun and learning back to them. And it's the same thing. You can have love and accountability at the highest level, and that's what the best coaches do. I mean, Pete Carroll has shown you can win that way. Sean McVay is really an amazing leader who's created a great culture where they really believe in each other, they support each other, they're there for their players, and they're having fun, but they're also pursuing excellence. So I think the key is to have fun, build a great culture where people want to come, want to be there, want to play, and then they also want to strive to be their best in the process. And again, that's at every level you should be doing that. Because remember, it is a game. Like, it's a game. It's meant to be fun. Yes, it's a business, but you didn't get to that level by treating it like a business. So when I speak to the professional athletes, I said, hey, you got here because you were competing and loving the competition and loving playing. You were just doing what you love, and you realized you were good at it. Well, guess what? You're not going to get to the next level by making the business. Right. Keep loving it, showing up, having fun, and you'll see where it takes you. And so these kids, for instance, who are in youth sports, if they love it and have fun, their talent will keep them going as long as they continue to work at it, and they will rise to the next level if they're not, if they're meant to. I love that cartoon that has the coach yelling at this kid as he's in the batter's box, and it says, hey, coach, you're yelling at a future software developer right now.
Well, I love hearing that, because we have our parents within our club. They always talk to us and they say things like, you guys are just a bunch of 30-year-olds who don't want to grow up, aren't you? I go, yeah, that's 100%. We're going to keep it down to that elementary level. We're going to stay fun with it. Like, the second that we lose that fun and that enjoyment within what we're doing, I should probably find something else to do. So that's such a great tidbit for what anyone's doing in their job, in their life, in sports, no matter how old you are. Why wouldn't we continue to act like kids? Why wouldn't we?
I love that. Exactly. Why would I want to grow up? Because as soon as I grow up, it means I'm closer to dying. No, I want to have fun.
No, thank you.
Enjoy my life.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that's really cool, right? So you think through cultures and you think through the fun part and that aspect of it. And so I would think of, as a leader, and let's say you're aware of being the leader, right? You're running a great culture. We're all running an organization. How, as a leader, do you fill yourself up? Because you got to fill that up, right, to be able to give it back.
Yeah, you have to feed yourself so you can feed others. And the power of a positive team, I talk about feeding yourself to be able to feed your team. I also talk about the fact that great teams and positive teams don't just have fun together, they pursue greatness together. And because they believe the best is yet to come, they give their best to create the best outcome. So every day It's about how can I be my best and bring out the best in others. So how can I feed myself with positivity so I can help others be more positive or create a more positive team? And so for me, it's taking walks of gratitude. It's focusing on my challenges and then turning them into opportunities, right? I focus on the opportunity, not the challenge. So I look at that challenge and how can I make it an opportunity? I work on, really with this gratitude walk every day to focus on feeling blessed instead of stressed, because the research shows you can't be stressed and thankful at the same time. It's what you guys were just talking about, just having fun, showing up, having fun every day. And the more fun you have, the more life you feel, the more energy you feel, the more you have to share. So it's really about your perspective, and how you see the world determines the world that you see. So for me, that's what it's about. It's about every day showing up and fueling my mind and my spirit, my body with positive thoughts and emotions that uplift me, rather than stress hormones that slowly drain and kill me.
Well, you obviously move. You travel a lot, right? Obviously, you're all over the place and working with people, and so I think how have you managed to create a habit to be able to do a gratitude walk, or is that something that you're doing no matter what? Like no matter where I am in the country or the world?
Not every day.
Okay.
To be honest, when I'm home every day, when I'm on the road, if I'm speaking at 8 a.m., it's hard to take that walk. If it's November and I'm in Minneapolis, it's hard to take that walk.
Try doing it in January.
January, exactly. I always say it's a lot easier to do these thank you walks in Florida where I live.
Yeah.
But pretty much when I was first starting this, I was doing it almost every day. And now it's not every day, but I can tell when I get off track and I just get back to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously I think, so John, it's interesting because Steve and I, we're getting on a call today, and we worked late. I know you're moving around, and so you kind of get up early and you think, okay, like I'm talking to John Gordon today, we're gonna get positive.
Let's get positive. We listened to Marky Mark, Good Vibrations, right before we called you. I'm not gonna lie.
But the thing that I think is interesting about that, when you really peel that back, right? There's got to be, as the walk that you've chosen and the influence and impact that obviously you've had on even us. I know there's way more than Steve and I, but you've got to be, you're almost like held to such a high accountable standard of being positive, leadership, all these things. And that's why I like asking questions like that, because you're still a human, so and I just think as you've learned through the process, and you have some young coaches who are talking to you right now, and maybe it's something that we can take a nugget from you. As you've learned through that process, like you said early on, or now you've gotten a little bit smoother, you've created some good habits. What are some of the things that you've done that to hold up to that accountability?
Yeah, I think it's just remembering who you are, who you want to be, what you stand for, and knowing that you have to live it. Everything I've written about, I really work at living it. And in my talks, I often share how before I wrote the Carpenter and the Power of Positive Leadership and the Power of a Positive Team, before I wrote those books, I had become a more positive person, but I wasn't a great leader because I wasn't a servant leader. And I had to learn to serve my family first. So I was doing 15 engagements a month. Yeah. And I cut that back to 3. And one spring, I just spent the entire spring at home with my family. Because my wife was really struggling, my kids were struggling. But I really learned to be a servant leader because I had to serve them and invest in them and really be there for them. And in the beginning, I didn't want to do that. I was like to my wife, come on, I need to be on the road. I need to go speak. I need to do my calling. And she's like, we need home. We need to lead at home. And that was a big wake-up call for me because I saw how they really needed help. In the beginning, I wanted a different team. I often joke, but it's true. I really wanted a different team. But by the end of the year, I realized I didn't need a different team. I needed to become a better leader. And as I became a better leader, my team improved. So I was a younger leader at the time. So now, I read these 3 books after that, and that really changed my life as a writer and speaker, because now I'm talking about different things, I'm living it, and I'm benefiting people because of it. And I could have never wrote those 3 books. 3 of my best-selling books besides The Energy Bus are those 3 books. Happened after I was living and breathing it. So, but I also tell audiences that, I grew up with a New York City cop as a dad, undercover narcotics. So, if someone came at you and messed with you, like, you're fighting. Like, that's it. Like, someone comes at you, you punch them in the face and you find that. And that wasn't very positive, right? That's not very positive. That's not really positive advice. So I tell people all the time, it's ironic that I speak about this, that this is my life's work. But it's something I have to deal with and overcome, because as soon as someone comes at me, like, I'm ready. And I got on a plane several times. Like, I literally almost got into it, like Mr. Positive Guy, because these people are being like the biggest, rudest jerks of all time.
Oh, man.
And wind up coming at me, and then I wind up doing, I wind up saying something.
Yeah.
And so two of them I turned around into a positive by keeping my head above it, and another one, was just this guy was so evil. I just really,
Put him down.
So I've learned with that, and I told the audience the other day, I said, listen, if I ever beat someone up on a plane, I just want you to know, I told you, I'm not being a hypocrite. This is something I struggle with. I struggle because I struggle with this because people need to know it's real.
Yeah.
And so 99% of the time, I'm positive, but you see that manager that goes crazy after a call and they start screaming and yelling, right? And that person's not a bad person. They just, have been, they really got turned inside out, or I'd say outside in instead of inside out because of the situation. So it's about growing and improving every day. It's about getting better and learning and growing. So I've become, a very positive dad, a very positive husband. I've worked on myself all these years. I'm now 47, and I'm a much better leader in person than when I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
And much better than when I was in my 20s. And so I'm going to be better in my 50s, God willing. So it just takes time, and as long as you're working at it and you're growing at it, it doesn't excuse when you mess up, but the goal is to get better every day. And don't, beat yourself up. Just continue to work on getting better and be humble about it. See where your faults are. I know my constraint. Everyone has a constraint. My constraint is that, that someone comes at you, you fight back. So I know that constraint, so I have to heal that constraint so it doesn't eventually bring me down.
I mean, love it.
I love it.
Yeah, what a sense of awareness.
One of my favorite stories is hearing that Oprah can't go in airports anymore because everyone thought she was going to give him a hug. At least you don't have to hug everybody.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
That would be worse.
Oh, man. Well, that is awesome, John. I will, in terms of your time, I know Stevie and I appreciate it, man. And this was an awesome little fuel-up session for the boys. This will funnel into our coffees really well this morning. As we kind of take off, and I know we'll have a lot of people listen to this in terms of the youth, high school world. And we touched on it.
Great. They're going to be like, hey, what's wrong with John Gordon? Better not mess with him.
Yeah, better not. I guess I got to look down when I see Johnny. He's going to put me down. But no, in terms of, and just the last piece of advice in terms of things you would like to spread onto the younger athletic world in all sports, and just kind of feed off what we talked on as leadership for kids as we move up, or ourselves or anything around those worlds. Just something you want to feed us with.
Yeah, I want to leave with, I think it's based on what we just talked about in terms of like the world is going to be coming at you, and there's always going to be outside noise and negativity. But just remember, and this is what I tell myself often, we don't create our world outside in, we create it inside out. Mm-hmm. And so the power truly is on the inside. And so I have to realize, and you have to realize, that when stuff's coming our way and when there's a lot of negativity, we don't have to participate in it, that we are stronger and more powerful on the inside. And when you remember that, you will walk in that truth and power. I'm writing a book with a friend of mine, Damon West, and Damon speaks to a lot of sports teams as well. And we're writing about the egg and the carrot and the coffee bean, and basically you put that egg into hot water and it gets hardened by the environment. Mm-hmm. Hard-boiled egg. You put that carrot into hot water and it gets softened by the harsh conditions, by the hot water, gets weakened by the environment. But if you put that coffee bean into hot water, it transforms the water. Nothing happens to the coffee bean, but it turns that water into coffee and it transforms it. And that's what we have to do. We need to transform our environment with our positivity, with our love, our passion, and who we are on the inside. And again, that's where your power is. And 99% of the time, every day, that's what I'm seeking to do and how I'm living. And the more you recognize that, you won't allow the outside forces or negative people or negative situations to impact you, but instead you'll impact them in a positive way.
Well, John, I just wanted to say thank you. I don't know if you know the influence you've had on Harvey and I, which has had the influence on, thousands of youth athletes. And we just really appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing and don't stop, because we need that positive energy in our lives. Trust me, working in youth sports, you need it. So thank you.
I know totally, and I appreciate the work you guys do. Keep up the great work. Youth sports needs it, and keep on sharing it.
All right. Thank you, John. Hey, have a good rest of the day, man.
All right, guys. Take care. Thanks so much.
See ya.